What's up, everybody? Maran here for another weekly update, and a very late one. I apologize. I wasn't able to get it out on Friday this week, but hopefully better late than never, right? So anyway, getting into all the news here this week, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream here on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Join if you can. But going into the news stories here, the New York Auto Show is going on next week, and there's been a bunch of the early stuff. It always seems to come out like the week ahead of time, so we got a bunch of stuff to cover here. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, your favorite snack, and let's get into it. So first off, before we get to the New York Auto Show stuff, in my opinion, one of the biggest news stories here this week is that Auto Guide has recently discovered a recent EU trademark that Mazda made for a Mazda6E. And the 6E name, we see the logo there. That was also, part of it. So this seems fairly official. It's not like they're just holding on to something. If they also have, the logo designed, this makes me think this is something that they're actually serious about and are actively working on. So the trademark also specifies that it's not just for automobiles and their parts, but also for electric cars and their parts. So this could be a model just meant for Europe as well, since again, this is an EU trademark. And, it could be, again, since the EU is getting to be more strict with the electric stuff here eventually compared to the US, maybe this is something they're just going to try out there. And also considering Mazda's past EVs and the plug-in hybrid stuff they've done all have, lower ranges, and that's more suited for, Europe. That's why they still have the MX-30 over there when they got rid of it here last year for us because no one wanted it. So this could be just for Europe, so we'll have to wait and see. But the interesting thing here, though, about this, the other context of this story here is that apparently production of the regular Mazda 6, which again went away a few years ago for us, but the rest of the world still has that generation Mazda 6, and it's been in production here, but that generation does end production next month for the rest of the world here. So the timing could suggest, we're seeing a new trademark here, we're seeing production wind down. Clearly there's going to be something built in that factory. It seems like maybe we're getting ready to do a model switch over to a next generation version, and this is teeing up for that. And, again, whether or not we get the new Mazda 6 here remains to be seen. But so, the E thing is also an interesting component too, because E could just stand for electrified. It doesn't have to stand for EV. They didn't say Mazda 6 EV. It just says Mazda 6E. So, and with the way Mazda's been going with electrification, it could be the 48-volt mild hybrid system. That could be enough to justify calling it a 6E. And, if they just have standard, mild hybrid stuff and use the same platform as the CX90 and CX70, then that could justify that name as well. They could also just do a plug-in hybrid, or it could be, again, some other electric thing or something different. We'll have to wait and see if we ever see anything. But, there was recent rumors that a Mazda 6 was going to return, and that the CX90, doing as well as it has done for Mazda, encouraged the home office to push through a Mazda 6, despite the fact that maybe it won't be the hottest seller. I think it's, they want to make sure they have an upmarket sedan if they are going to go for this premium thing, which if you're going to go for a premium thing, you got to have all the premium stuff. Typically that means, you have a sporty model, you have a luxury sedan, you have your SUVs. They got the SUVs covered now. But, all the main, luxury competitors have a nice large sedan. Mazda currently has the Mazda 3. That's it. And it's definitely, in my opinion, the most luxurious of the compact class, but just the compact class. Everyone else plays in the midsize and full size. I don't know if we should expect both of those from Mazda, but, something that splits the difference, kind of like the way Cadillac does or something like that, could potentially be something we see here. And so I think there's a pretty good chance we see a Mazda 6 here in the States. Basically, just count on CX90 bones, in a sedan body. That would be what I would assume, especially considering how they're really recycling stuff for the CX70. I would assume the Mazda 6 is just going to be that platform, maybe shortened a little bit, but same stuff, same powertrain, same transmission, all that, and same interior probably too. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, very interesting to hear that. Now, for some official reveals here, getting to the New York stuff here, Infiniti has revealed the new 2025 QX80, and it's amazingly over a foot wider than the old one, plus an inch longer, and continues to share a body-on-frame platform with the Nissan Patrol found overseas, although now it's based on the newer one that's stiffer and it's a more robust platform than before. And while the platform is stiffer, the ride should be smoother and more refined thanks to an optional air suspension that can raise it 2.4 inches and lower it up to 2.8 inches, plus a a digital dynamic suspension that also can optionally scan the road to prepare the dampers to provide a smoother ride. That ride is propelled by a new 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 that does 450 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque, and combined with a 9-speed automatic, Infiniti claims 20% better fuel economy, but considering the old one only got 15 mpg combined, we're looking at 18 mpg combined now if those predictions are correct, but I guess that might be slightly better than some of the competitors. And anyway, it can tow 8,500 pounds still, so again, still very trucky, and so, you know, you're only going to get such good fuel economy. There's only so much you can do with this. There's a bunch of people that were also, random tangent, but people that were complaining about the Ram high output motor doing as good or worse fuel economy than the Hemi slightly, that it's replacing, but it's way more power, and it's a giant truck still. Like, people can't be expecting 40 mpg out of, you know, these trucks. And, you know, when you have more power, even with turbos, you're going to, you know, have, you know, fuel economy is most likely going to be worse. But the fact they kept the fuel economy the same as the V8 with way more power, I think is a win. But anyway, random tangent, back to the QX80 here. So the interior is finally brought up to speed here with the competition, with lots of nice materials and screens, including a 14-inch touchscreen, a smaller screen lower there for the HVAC controls, one for the rear passengers as well, plus a digital gauge cluster. There's also an impressive 1,200-watt, 24-speaker Klipsch stereo, following the Ram's Klipsch stereo that they have as well for the 2025s here. So that Ram did beat Infiniti to the punch, even though I think others are claiming this is the first automotive application for Klipsch, but it's clearly not, because it's already in the Ram. But one exclusive touch here for this integration for the Infiniti is that there's a driver's headrest speaker that can put a phone call or nav directions only in earshot of the driver, so the other occupants aren't bothered by it. And that's something that, you know, Mazda's been doing in the Miatas for years, and it's a really brilliant little thing. It actually works pretty well. But anyway, interesting to see them putting that here in this, and a really creative idea. One other interesting touch here that I don't think any other car company really has is a biometric infrared sensor that can detect your body temperature and automatically adjust the climate control appropriately. We will see how well that actually works in practice, but sounds cool in theory. And it'll go on sale here later this summer, and pricing will start at $84,445, including destination. You can climb all the way up to $112,590 for a fully loaded autograph trim that includes things like 3 rows of heated seats, massaging second row seats even, and a lot more. So it sounds like it's going to be pretty well loaded up with equipment there. And, I mean, you also have to keep in mind, Infiniti typically does a lot more discounts than most of their competitors. So, yes, these prices, you know, put it right up there with all the, you know, top competitors. But, you know, you might get a little discount at the Infiniti dealer. Don't assume that, but, you know, I think that'll hopefully help the pricing case for these. Because otherwise, I mean, it's nice. But is it $112,500 nice? I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping to get one to test here at some point this year, and I will let you guys know. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Nissan also had their own big debut on the polar opposite end of the spectrum here ahead of the New York Auto Show, and this is the 2025 Nissan Kicks, which is completely ground up, brand new, totally reimagined. And as you can probably tell, it's bigger. It's also now available with all-wheel drive for the first time, which makes a lot of sense here in the States especially. It's also about almost 3 inches longer, only less than an inch wider, and almost the same height as before, which is really surprising considering how much higher it looks than the last generation, which was essentially just a hatchback, and also the fact that it has a lot more ground clearance now than before, which is cool. And it also did gain between 300 to 500 pounds depending on the trim and how many of the wheels are driven. Of course, the all-wheel drive system adds more weight, but it does get a little bit of a power boost here to compensate. Now running a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder instead of the old 1.6-liter naturally aspirated motor. And it's not a big increase though. You just get 19 more horsepower and 26 more pound-feet of torque for totals of 141 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque now. And that is much less than the turbocharged Trax, for example, although that's stuck with front-wheel drive. But, you know, I mean, you have stuff like the CX30, which does, way more power. So this is still on the slow end of the spectrum, even for this class. But regardless, inside it's got more storage space and more cargo space if you stick with front-wheel drive. Plus, there's the zero-gravity seats for all 5 seats now, instead of, I think, in the past it was just the front ones. But there's also digital gauges and a touchscreen as standard, and they're both 7 inches, but you can upgrade to 12.3-inch screens for both of them if you go for the SR trim. And it sounds like those bigger screens are the only ones that get the wireless capability for the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's unfortunate you don't get that as standard in the base screen, but I guess that's the way they're playing it. They all come standard, though, with the impressive safety tech here that is really hard for other companies to match, because it gives you blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, adaptive cruise control, and all the other basic stuff we're used to. Most other companies still make you pay for blind spot monitoring, and adaptive cruise isn't a guarantee, and most of the others in the tracks, for example, makes you pay extra for that. Depending on the pricing, which we don't have yet, but if they price this right and keep it close to current Kicks pricing, this could really, really shake things up in that segment. We'll have to see. But that top SR trim also even gets the Pro Pilot Assist function, which basically adds in that lane keep assist to the cruise control. But Pro Pilot Assist is great. I've tested it in other Nissans, and it's one of the top systems in my mind. It works really well for the most part, and so I think that's a great offering there as well. And so these are going to go on sale in the US and Canada this summer, but again, there's no pricing for those yet. And Kia has revealed the K4 this week, which is going to be the Forte replacement that's going to be arriving likely for the 2025 model year, although I haven't seen an actual model year given for this yet. We also don't have any details really on it aside from 4 pictures here. Looks like it's going to be larger, have a fun green interior option, which gets points from me. It also appears to have the double 12-inch screens with a little middle screen available there, like you see in the EV9 from Kia. There's also, hopefully going to be more details we're going to get next week at the actual New York Auto Show debut. I think this was like the early preview that they just did in Korea. Hopefully we'll get all the US details next week. We'll have to wait and see, so stay tuned for more on that hopefully. But overall, still a promising first look, and we'll see how it all plays out. Also, BMW has revealed the Vision New Class X, which I'm very curious to hear in the comments what you guys all think about this design. Keep in mind it is a concept still, but it should give us a pretty good hint at what the production version will look like that's actually coming here in a year or two. And we actually also, another follower, Sid Robo on Instagram, sent me some spy pictures of what I believe is the production version of that, which will probably just call the iX3 or something. So that'll give you an idea of how they might tone some of this stuff down. But anyway, getting back to the concept here, inside it gets a trapezoidal screen along with a little driver information bar. There's apparently like a head-up thing that's projected there, but it's at the base of the windshield, and that looks exactly like the old Prius with their little bar they had in the bottom there, if you remember those. Kind of funny that is now coming back. But mechanically, BMW says it'll use cylindrical cells instead of the usual prismatic ones, which provides 20% more energy density and a 30% faster charge rate thanks to the 800-volt electrical system this car is going to run, which adds up to 186 miles of range in just 10 minutes, although total range wasn't given just yet. And overall efficiency, they say, is also up by 25% thanks to other improvements. And so those details should also transfer over to the production car, which is, I think, why they're giving us these details, here ahead of the full, final reveal of this thing. But anyway, a promising setup there from a mechanical standpoint, and clearly it seems like BMW sales are not being hurt by their wild designs, so why not just keep going crazy? I mean, again, it's a concept, so we will reserve judgment, for the production version until that comes. But it's interesting. I'm not sure I'm in love with the nose. Just looks like it's like squeezed in the middle. I know it kind of goes back to the old ones from way back when, but on that larger face just seems a little odd to me, if you're wondering my opinion. But anyway, moving on here, Volkswagen has revealed a faster GTX version of the ID. Buzz this week, but sadly, like all the other GTX Volkswagen models, we won't get this one either. It's just for Europe, I think, and we're still even waiting on the regular Buzz. Like, it's funny, there's other stuff here. They're giving this thing like almost like a little mid-year refresh, and we haven't even seen the first version yet. So for those in Europe, though, it gets the 335 horsepower setup, same as the other GTX models, with all-wheel drive and a choice of 2 different wheelbases and either a 79 kilowatt-hour battery or an 86 kilowatt-hour battery. It provides a 6.5 seconds 0 to 60 time and a top speed of 99 miles per hour, which, I mean, honestly, it takes bravery in something that's shaped like this. But it does get an increase in towing capacity to nearly 4,000 pounds as a result of the extra power there. In addition to the slightly sportier styling inside and out, it gets a slight screen upgrade from a 12-inch screen to the 12.9-inch screen. That brings it up to speed with the other newest Volkswagens and includes those illuminated touch sliders, which originally this vehicle didn't have. I'm assuming the US version will get all this newest stuff, hopefully, but again, we'll have to see because it's still crickets here in the States as far as when I think the Buzz was originally supposed to show up in the summer, and this GTX version, by the way, for those in Europe, was also supposed to show up this summer. But I think the delay has been, or the reveal has been pushed back here for the Buzz. I mean, we already know what it looks like. We have all the US details. It's just actually the on sale date just seems like it isn't going to be happening as soon as we all expected. We'll have to see. It's just still a big mystery as far as when Buzz is actually coming here to the States. But anyway, interesting to see that GTX version for those in Europe. And some other Volkswagen brand news here. During Seat's annual press conference, they confirmed that the sportier Cupra brand will come to North America by the end of the 2020s. The first one we'll likely be getting is an electric version of the next Fermentor, followed by a bigger electric SUV that'll be built in Mexico and sold on the east and west coasts, they say, as well as the Sunbelt states. So they're basically just skipping the Midwest and the middle of the country there, and for obvious reasons, again, if it's going to be electric. And they say they're going to be distributing these through a new distribution model, which sounds like they're just cutting out dealers, like everyone secretly wants to do, or not so secretly, depending on on who you ask. But anyway, so Volkswagen, I think this is an interesting choice. This is one of the big breaking stories that everyone was shocked by this past week. And Volkswagen, they already are struggling enough selling their own products here, and their electric products especially. So, we will see how this plays out for them, but I don't see the need for more brands within Volkswagen. We already have Scout coming, and I can see a case for Scout, to be made there for that. But, what is Cupra going to add that Volkswagen doesn't have? The sportier stuff Volkswagen can do, and they have done, and, they could put our versions of every new electric thing out there and have the same thing. I don't see what this Cupra brand solves. What does this achieve that they can't do with the massive Volkswagen empire they already have over here with the Audis and stuff? I mean, it just seems like they're going GM here with or a Ford, even for that matter, of Mercury and all these other in between brands like GM had as well, with Pontiac and Saturn and all this stuff. It's like, where does Cupra fit in? It's higher than Volkswagen, but not as high as Audi. Do you have enough of a margin there to fill a gap? I don't know. We will see how they decide to play that, unless this is just a creative way of getting rid of dealers and being like, oh, well, let's just phase out, most of the Volkswagen stuff and badge them all as Cupras and, dump the dealers. Maybe that's the reasoning for this. I have no clue. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Mercedes has a couple debuts here this week. First, the 2025 GLC 350e, which is the plug-in hybrid version of this generation GLC. It uses the 2-liter Turbo 4 combined with an electric motor that together do 313 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, which is 110 less pound-feet of torque than the last version, interestingly, which explains the full 1 second slower to 0 to 60 time, which now sits at 6.6 seconds. But honestly, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I think these are all good trade-offs, and I think Mercedes actually did this really smartly, because you look at your average GLC buyer, especially a non-AMG GLC buyer, they don't care between a 5.6 seconds 0 to 60 and 6.6. 6.6 is still going to be fine. Because the main focus here is on range, which is what it should be for a plug-in hybrid. And so it gets an extra 11.3 kilowatt hour of battery for totals of 24.8 kilowatt hours for the battery there, which gives it 81 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle in Europe, but still should have one of the longest ranges for a plug-in hybrid here in the States whenever this does arrive here. I'm thinking it'll be something over 50 miles, because, you do get a huge drop from WLTP, but it's not half, in my opinion. So, some of the best stuff like the, Prius Prime and all that doing right around 40-odd miles. If this is actually, going to have that big of a battery pack, I think this could actually be one of the top ones, and I think that's great. I'm really excited for these longer range plug-in hybrids, but unfortunately, just like the E53 plug-in hybrid I just covered last week, the GLC also supports DC fast charging at the glacial speeds of 60 kilowatts for those that want to hog a DC fast charger for no good reason at all. It's still, I will be brief for this week, but it's the same thing I said last time, where it's like, why... If you have a gas engine, do not sit at a fast charger. That's why you have the gas engine. It's you're going to burn through your 40 or 50 miles of range super fast on a road trip anyway. There's no need to hog chargers whenever actual EVs that need the chargers to get places, your GLC and your other gas-powered Mercedes do not need a fast charger. I don't know why they think this is a good idea. This is only going to fuel more anger at charging stations when you see plug-in hybrids sitting there while people can't get home in their EVs because they have to wait around for some person with a gas engine to sit there and get their 40 miles of range. Like, what a stupid idea. Anyway, maybe I should do a separate rant video about that and really go off. But anyway, Mercedes seems like they are going to keep on doing that for some bizarre reason. But anyway, this GLC 350e is going to go on sale in the second half of this year, and there's no pricing for these yet. Mercedes has also revealed the new lower 43 version of the AMG GT. So just like the SL that offers the same thing pretty much, it runs a highly boosted 2-liter turbo 4 that does 416 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, which is just about 50 less horsepower than the twin-turbo V8 55 version. So not bad for this little 4-cylinder. And the 43 version also will still do 4.5 seconds 0 to 60 and 174 mile per hour top speed. And one other nice perk here compared to the V8 version is that this one actually doesn't force you to get all-wheel drive. It's actually rear-wheel drive only for this one, which should make it lighter and significantly cheaper as well. We'll see how they decide to play the pricing, but handling also should be better, just having that less weight up on the nose there. And the lower standing does mean that it looks a little less aggressive here, losing most of the scoops and vents of the faster versions, along with the fenders that aren't as wide now, but it's still a good looking car, and it too should arrive fairly soon, but we don't know yet how much of a discount they're going to provide for this lower trim. But I think this is a great idea, and I'm glad that they're not shying away from slower versions of their coupes, because there's some people that just want a coupe, just want to look cool, and don't need to have a ton of power. And I think it makes a lot of sense, and kudos to Mercedes for a good decision there as far as that one goes. They do have a lot of good stuff, even if they have missteps like the DC fast charging. I think the GLC is great. I think this is a great idea as well, so interesting to hear that. And for the last little bit of Mercedes news here, AMG has teased a new standalone EV that's going to be testing currently in the snow in the Arctic Circle here. So it's wearing some prototype parts like the taillights there that obviously won't be the production ones, but they did reveal that it'll be on a new platform called AMG EA, and they're testing it in the Arctic Circle here to test its durability, of course. And we can see it'll be 4 doors and could be a hatchback, making it a successor to the AMG GT 4-door. They say it even gets a unique battery that is just for these high performance models that's coming. And there's not much more beyond that for now, but it sounds like we'll get more info on this vehicle later this year. Audi is busy working on their future EVs here, and one was fully revealed this week, the Q6 E-Tron. And the images of it in camo that we just saw a few months ago basically showed us the whole thing already, but now we see it without the wrap, as well as getting all the details as well. So the basics are the same as the Macan EV we just recently saw, since it sits on that same PPE platform as the Macan, including the 800-volt system, dual motors with a rear power bias that makes a peak of 456 horsepower for the regular one in launch mode, and 510 horsepower in the SQ6. Those power figures result in a 5 seconds 0 to 60 for the regular one, and a 4.2 seconds 0 to 60 for the S version. They're both powered by a 94.9 kilowatt hour battery. That's the usable capacity. And in the regular one, Audi estimates 300 miles of range on the EPA test, but they aren't sharing the estimate for the S version yet, but it's safe to assume it's going to be a little bit less than that. And the Sportback versions will be coming along, as well as a slower rear motor version that'll be coming at some point down the road as well. And both of those should provide higher ranges in the future. There's also the 800 volt system that now can do 270 kilowatt peak charge rates for a 10% to 80% charge in just 21 minutes. And as far as the interior, this one brings Audi into the next generation here with a 14.5-inch touchscreen, an 11.9-inch digital gauge cluster, and a 10.9-inch passenger display. So the days of having the Audi be the one with all the buttons and the Porsche being the one with all the screens like we saw with the Taycan and the e-tron GT, clearly this is now following the Porsche and just going to have everything be basically touchscreens, and that's it. There's also an optional augmented reality head-up display you can get on these. They'll be arriving at US dealers this fall, but there's no pricing for this one yet either. But get ready for also lots more Audi debuts here throughout this year, because Audi themselves said last year that the A6 e-tron is coming next in just a few months based on the same PPE platform, which likely means most of the mechanical details will be the same as that Q6 e-tron. So bank on pretty much everything I just said in a sedan form. But, there may be some more unique stuff. We'll see. But after that will be the next generation A5 and Q5, with the A5 for some reason replacing the A4. I think the even numbered ones they're saying now are going to be electric, and the odd ones will still be gas. Seems kind of confusing, but and we don't know how many forms the A5 will take. There were spy shots of a wagon version in Europe, which we probably won't get here. But will they do a regular A5 sedan? Seems kind of weird. I don't know, but the thing about the A5 and the Q5 is that they will continue with gas power of some form here. There'll likely be plug-in hybrids that'll be included as well. And this also will be the last generation of gas debuts if they stick to their electrification plan and don't push it back more. And then the A4 will be returning as the A4 E-Tron, but we don't have any details on that one yet. I'm not sure if that one's coming here in the next year or so as well, but I would assume it'll come a little bit after that A6 version. And Audi said that over 20 new products will arrive before the end of 2025. So Motor One is also speculating that some of the other ones that'll be on the way, that'll be arriving here, will be a next generation of the Q3 most likely, a refreshed RS3, which makes sense since we just saw the refreshed S3 and A3 last week. Chances are we'll see the RS3, pretty soon as well. And also an A8 e-tron and a Q9 e-tron, certainly seem to make sense to see next as well. So we'll see about all that. But I agree with Motor One. Those are probably the safest bets, and we'll see what else they've decided to bring out as well. But interesting to hear all that. And one other Audi model that will also be coming a little later here will be a new entry-level EV. And so there's no name for it yet, but when it arrives in 2027, it will be a wonderful, unique, independent vehicle concept, which is what the Audi CEO said whenever Autocar interviewed them here recently. There's not much else to report yet, as the CEO admitted they haven't even decided on what platform it's going to use yet. So really in the early conceptual stages for this one here. But they're fast-tracking the car in response to the coming wave of affordable EVs from China and other competitors. It seems like, once BYD started talking about how they're getting, more focused on the U.S. and North American markets and stuff, it seems like everyone's like, all right, now's the time. Let's hurry up and get our $25,000 EV out there. And the Audi will probably be more expensive than that. But, something affordable, lower-end EVs need to happen yesterday. It seems like all the car companies are immediately like, okay, let's hurry up and fast-track it. That was the kick they needed. So anyway, good to hear about more affordable models coming, though. This is clearly an underserved part of the market, I think, and something I'm very happy to see companies not just focusing on the upper end, because it seemed like, Mercedes and other companies were talking about, let's just make 5 cars for billionaires and, have huge profit margins, and who cares about volume anymore? And it seems like, maybe they do actually care now, and they're changing their tune, and maybe they're not going to just focus on all these super high-end things, and so it's good to see they're also going to be thinking about the affordable stuff as well. Speaking of that upper end, though, Bentley is also working on a vehicle that'll be riding on that same PPE platform from Porsche and Audi, but their version has been delayed a year and now won't debut until near the end of 2026 due to software issues and platform-related concerns. So we will see, if it's just that the platform isn't high-end enough for them or what, but that was according to Automotive News Europe, who reported that. But Autocar has their own report claiming that just like the Audi, they too won't get rid of gas cars at Bentley until 2033 now, 3 years later than originally planned. And this is due to, again, the slowing sales growth for EVs currently, supposedly. And in the meantime, they're supposedly investing a bunch of money into new plug-in hybrid models. Just everyone's doing the same thing. It's amazing how it's just been a month of people being like, hey, let's just delay our EVs and bring in plug-in hybrids. And everyone's like, yep, let's all do it. Every single car company is doing the exact same thing, basically. So even Bentley is following the trend here. So the current plug-in hybrid V6 that Bentley already uses in the Flying Spur, that will stick around. But also a new V8 plug-in hybrid setup is reportedly under development to provide W12 levels of power while the W12 motor still does end up going away. And my bet here is, with the plug-in hybrid for the Flying Spur, it's pretty much the same as the Panamera's plug-in hybrid system, if I understand correctly. And if we're talking about a V8 one, basically, we're seeing plug-in hybrids for the new Cayenne and Panamera. Again, with the V8, I think it's just going to take that Porsche setup, toss it in the Bentley, give it some tweaks, and that's probably what you can expect there. And I just covered, the new Cayenne plug-in hybrid and stuff not too long ago, but Anyway, according to Autocar, the company's bestseller, though, the Bentayga, will still forge ahead with its transition to EV only in 2026, which is really surprising to me. You would think if the Bentayga is one, the mainstream seller, and also the SUV one, typically I feel like SUV buyers might be a little more resistant to the EV thing than a sedan or a coupe buyer might be. I don't know. But it just seems like if that's your cash cow, do you want to risk the EV thing too early with your cash cow compared to the others? I feel like do the EV thing on the experimental stuff first and foremost before you do it in the Bentayga, but that's the way they're gonna play it here supposedly. Again, according to Autocar, we'll see if that turns out to be true. But anyway, interesting to hear all that. And a quick follow-up here on last week's update where I was talking about the Nissan GT-R and, the little tweaks and the fact that it could be the last model year here. There's still no official word on whether or not 2025 will be the final production year, but they did announce 2 other special editions here for the 2024 model year that will also be made in very limited numbers. So the first is the Skyline edition, which basically brings back the legendary Bayside blue color and pairs it with a Sora blue interior. And the other one is the T-Spec Takumi, which continues last year's T-Spec and includes a midnight purple paint, but gets an engine with an elevated level of attention to precise engine tolerances and component balancing during assembly. So a little bit of extra care there for those ones. Not like GTRs are slapped together haphazardly anyway, but nice to see they're going to, I guess, give this one a little bit of extra treatment here. And there's no price on either of those, but they'll begin arriving here this summer. And, I'm all for it. Nissan, needs to cash in as much as they possibly can if this is the final run here of the GTRs. So, do all the special editions you need to do to, really make a special send-off and, get the last little bit of profit out of those that you can. So, makes a lot of sense. And, great colors. I'm so happy to see Bayside Blue and Midnight Purple come back. So, very excited for those, even if they're going to be super rare. In other Nissan news here, very briefly, they signed a memorandum of understanding with Honda to potentially work on electric vehicle components and software together, if their research and this study that they're doing suggests that it's worthwhile for them to partner up. So, not of an official partnership yet, but they're open to it and exploring the idea. So, if it's just components, this means they'll probably maybe share batteries or just electric motors, things like that. Probably not even full platforms, so there'll still be a lot of differences. But, it makes sense. With electric motors, yes, you can tune them and be unique a little bit, but, it's not going to have unique characteristics like you get with gas engines. So why not have like universal motors almost, and then just, cut the cost there, make them in real bulk, and then, ship them out to whoever wants them, and, then do your own unique stuff as far as platform and styling and all that. But makes a lot of sense. We'll see if their study decides that it is worthwhile. But in other Nissan partnership news, on another follow-up here, I talked last week about the report that Nissan was supposedly in talks with Fisker in order to get access to their Alaska electric truck platform. And so Fisker continues to only say they remain in negotiations with a large automaker. But this week, they announced they need to pause production of the Fisker Ocean for the next 6 weeks due to roughly 4,700 vehicles in inventory that they need to work on selling before they build more. And with all the issues they've had so far, I talked about this last week as well, and in the live stream and stuff we've talked about this, but they have a lot of issues currently, and hopefully they're just early teething bugs, but there's a lot of major things, the vehicle locking people in the car, cars dying on the side of the road, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like right now they'd have a hard time giving away 4,700 more of these things with everything that anyone that knows how to Google can find about a Fisker. I don't know, 4,700. Good luck on that one, man. This thing is turning into a dumpster fire real fast, in my opinion. We will see if they can get rid of all those vehicles, but I might have to start giving them away for free. Anyway, I don't know why they kept building so many. Like, hit the brakes like weeks, months ago. Why they thought that everyone was going to be running for these things. I don't know. Fisker just... so many interesting decisions here. They're also now, by the way, missing payments on their debts and will likely end up filing for bankruptcy if things don't drastically improve soon, which, again, I can't envision things getting much better anytime soon, or if they don't get a lifeline from Nissan. It really is all going to hinge on that major automaker who, in this dynamic, has all the power, it sounds like. It's going to be... if someone doesn't give them a lifeline fast, I think Fisker could be done by the end of the year. We'll see. But anyway, interesting to hear that. One EV startup here that's in much better shape, Rivian, they appear to be working on a more rugged version of the R1T called the R1X, according to recent trademark filings that Motor One just reported on. And this now brings some sense to the patent drawings that surfaced about a year ago of a more rugged R1T, and it makes complete sense. I mean, look at the Raptors and all that stuff. It's easy money, you know, slap some big tires and a lift on any truck and charge way more than you should. But, you know, hey, it's got a factory warranty and you can bundle it into financing and all that. And people go crazy for it. So, especially Rivian, you know, they're still needing, you know, that support and that money. They're still an early, you know, company that's not on super stable ground. So I think this is a great idea to boost profits. And I'm sure people will line up for them like they do for all the other, you know, slightly lifted trucks and stuff. But anyway, so interesting to hear that. Another truck that's getting more rugged here is the Hyundai Santa Cruz. And we'll see this refreshed Santa Cruz here that's going to be more rugged in a few days at the New York Auto Show. And the teaser images here suggest extra aggression. And the press release says that the interior also gets some changes for better ergonomics and the new infotainment system that other new Hyundais have been getting. And ergonomically, you know, it should probably just have, you know, more physical buttons and stuff, since that's something they're starting to bring back more of. And so anyway, I'll be covering all that next week. And the White House this week has announced their updated emissions regulations here, which there was a bunch of rumors I talked about not too long ago, and the rumors were pretty much right. And the standards, though, they aren't as lofty as they originally had planned, and that was part of, you know, this rumor was that they were going to be brought down because the automakers and a bunch of the industry groups were really pushing back hard. And it sounds like, you know, the government caved on that a decent bit here. Although there's still, you know, some pretty big improvements here to emissions that are planned over the next few years here. So there's no explicit demand for a certain percentage of EVs too, which is notable. They're giving everyone like an open field to just do whatever. Like, you know, if you can get to what they want is basically... instead of requiring about 67% of reduction of emissions and greenhouse gas emissions by 2032, it's now about 50% of cuts. So basically, you got to cut your emissions by half between now and 2032. And so if companies can do that with really good hybrids, really good plug-in hybrids, or an insanely efficient regular gas engine, knock yourself out. And that's, you know, there's no mandates. They're not forcing EVs. It's just, this is where we need to be as far as emissions reductions. Get there however you want. And so it's going to kind of open it to however car companies want to do it, which I think is actually pretty smart. So for most car companies, it'll mean between 30% and 56% of new vehicles sold will have to be EVs by 2032. I mean, 2032, we're talking 8 years from now, 30 to 56%. Again, depending on the car company. But I mean, we're already at like 9%, and you give it another 8 years to go. Even with the slowing, you know, sales growth, it is still growing and will continue to grow. And I think we'll get over this hump eventually and, you know, speed up again eventually once we get the more affordable stuff and the better tech and all that. But anyway, you know, I think these are very easy goals to obtain, you know, and so hopefully, I guess that's why everyone agreed. You know, the car companies and the industry groups are okay with this. And also, plug-in hybrids could really help these averages as well. If you have basically what are electric vehicles for everyone's commute for the most part, and you just have that gas engine, you know, being dragged along just, again, to give you the best of both worlds scenario, I think that's, you know, going to really help as well. So, now, the big deciding factor, though, for whether this rule and these regulations will even stand, though, will come down to the presidential election this fall. So that's going to certainly influence this, you know, law in particular. But again, this is a worldwide thing. Governments all around the world are doing similar kinds of, you know, requirements for having, you know, better emissions, all that. So some companies can wiggle more than others, but at the end of the day, you know, we're still going to be heading this direction regardless of what happens politically here in the States. But also, you know, one of the other big things playing a factor is that, you know, these car companies have to also keep in mind that there's the CARB states, and California and all of the 14 CARB states, which will actually be 18 CARB states by 2026, they're still requiring 68% of new car sales to be EVs or plug-in hybrids in those states by 2030. So, you know, it's interesting because obviously most companies are still going to have to play by the CARB rules and have, you know, California ready vehicles. For anyone who remembers back in the old days of, the California emissions system that was basically put on everything for the most part, with some exceptions, but, everyone just ended up basically just doing the California thing anyway. I think this is going to kind of be the same thing where, sure, you can sell more gas guzzlers in states outside of the CARB states, but, it's still going to be, I think California is going to be kind of leading the way, and most companies will still end up just kind of going along with that sooner or later. But California and those CARB states are now requiring, or they still have been requiring, 68% of new car sales to be EVs or plug-in hybrids. Plug-in hybrid is still an important extra component that is in there as a loophole of sorts to still have gas engines, even beyond, these, this is 2030 for this requirement. Plug-in hybrid is still an option. So still will have a gas power thing available, for anyone who wants that well into the 2030s, again, for a new car purchase, even in California. So anyway, but, those states, though, that are doing the CARB certification, those currently make up about 36% of all new car sales as of 2022. So probably, too large of a chunk to just, ignore and not, factor in. So, but that leads us into the next news story here, which is that Stellantis this week has announced that they will comply with the CARB standards, making the CARB goal the Stellantis goal as well. And they joined Ford, Honda, Volkswagen, and BMW, who all agreed to these same standards way back in 2019. And as of right now, none of them have, backed out of that. So, and the fact that Stellantis is joining means that 68% by 2030 will be electric stuff or plug-in hybrids. And the Stellantis CEO seems pretty excited about it as well, saying this decision is a win-win solution that is good for the customer and good for the planet. And Stellantis also will spend $4 million on EV chargers in California and another $6 million in other CARB states as well, but only investing in those CARB states which are, partaking in these goals. So interesting to hear that Stellantis is, just volunteering that. No one is forcing them into that. They are just going into that on their own free will. And so they're really positioning themselves to be, one of the leaders here as far as this electrification push, along with, Ford, Honda, Volkswagen, and BMW, and many others that are also doing that, even if they're not, formally agreeing to that just yet. But for the last news story here this week, one of the last V8 powered Stellantis vehicles is coming to an end here soon, the Wrangler 392. And Jeep this week has announced a final edition. Only 3,700 of these will be built, and there'll be 3,300 for the US, 300 for Canada, and 100 for the rest of the world that wants them. And the privilege of having one of the last V8 Wranglers won't come cheap. I mean, obviously, especially if you're in Canada or the rest of the world, but even here in the States, even if you manage to get one at MSRP, which is probably a big uncertainty right now. But anyway, even if you can get it for sticker, it's got a starting price of $101,890, including destination. And for that money, you do get a few unique upgrades, including another 1/2 inch of suspension lift, rock sliders, a grill guard, and a winch, plus all the other stuff you already got on the Extreme 35 upgrade package. There's also decals, badging, and gold accents inside and out. And if you don't want the final edition, you can still order a regular 392 Wrangler for this year as well. But you have to get the Extreme 35 package now. That comes on all of them. But still, even if you do have to get that, it's still going to save you about $8,500 over that final edition for, those few extra little upgrades there. But anyway, production starts this spring and ordering is open now. I'm sure they're probably already sold out, but if they're not, make sure you don't wait around if you're going to order one of those. And after this, the Durango is the last. They're doing their last call things this year, but Durango this is it. 2024 is actually the last year for anything V8 from Stellantis. So this and the Durango, grab them while you can. And they also might not go till the very end of the year. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to hear that. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have one new member that was able to join this past week thanks to the membership gifting that was done by Kyle and the Truck and Car Guy in last week's live stream. So huge thanks to both of you for your continued generosity. Nearly every week, giving those membership gifts to those in the live stream. I know they all very much appreciate it, as does especially most of those that are able to rejoin and continue to be members thanks to those gifts. But I also want to give A big welcome here to the new member. So big welcome to Connor Greaterex12. Hope you're enjoying the membership perks so far. Looking forward to chatting with you in the live stream if you can make it here, where those members do always get that priority answering. And for anyone else that would like to join, become a member and get that priority answering and all those other membership perks, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and also a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.